What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here, and this video is going to be the lineup making process for me to create 150 lineups for the Drive the Green tournament GPP on DraftKings this week. I'm doing this video because anytime I see a field of 18 or a very small field, it always piques my interest, right, to be able to throw 150 lineups at it. I know it's always something where everyone's like, oh, you can cover all the combinations and you can just, win a GPP, which is obviously not necessarily true, which we'll talk about more in a second. But every time I see a small field, I get really interested. A few years back at the Tour Championship, I max entered that with only 30 players in the field. We doubled our money. We had a really good sweat down the stretch. It looked like we had a shot at winning $100,000 for a few minutes. So it's always been fun just because there's so few players and everyone has everyone. The swings are really fun. So this is the first time I believe that DraftKings has ever had a 150 max or at least large contests or contests at all really for the Hero World Challenge, which is only 18 players. So you're going to have a third of the players in the field in every single one of your lineups. So to be able to throw 150 lineups in there is kind of wild, and it drew me in. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to show the video creation process. This is kind of a unique situation for me, for DraftKings, so we're going to go through it together. But I do want to point out a few things. I'm not going to post this video until lineup lock. It's not necessarily because I don't want you to see my lineups. I don't really care beforehand. I'm just not a big fan of like giving out lineups in general. I think it's bad for the industry, so I'm making a decision to hold off on anything until this tournament actually starts. So I'll post it then, and then I'll try to do some updates after each round. All right, if you are not familiar with this tournament that I'm talking about, here's what it is, okay? It's PGA, $125,000 guaranteed. It's $25,000 to first place. And here are the full payouts. There's 29,000 entries. About, what's that? 25-30% of the field, 7,600 are going to get paid. Heavy up top, as always, with 25,000. Now, the concern here, when you do a showdown slate or anything like that, where there's only so many combinations, is there's going to be a lot of duplicate lineups. And shout out to, there's a great conversation we had on YouTube when I posted this preview video for the Hero World Challenge. Hiker Dog chimed in, thank you, Hiker Dog, mentioned, and I quote, there are 18,564 different combinations of 6 players out of 18. When you factor into the salary cap, it lessens that number considerably. It will be difficult to have a unique lineup out of 29,000 entries. I completely agree. There are going to be a lot of overlap lineups. My response is this. There will be a lot of overlap lineups, but I will also take an attempt to leave a lot of salary cap on the table. I imagine the highest duplicated lineups are going to be 50,000, 49,900, 49,000, and if you spend over 49,500, your lineup is going to be duplicated hundreds of times. That's what we see every single time. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to use a lineup optimizer, which if you know me, I never do. I usually create all my lineups by hand, but for this, I want to make sure that I have as many unique combinations as possible without going through by hand for 150 lineups. I'm going to probably generate 100 lineups, just raw, and then I'm going to generate probably 50 more that have maybe like a max salary cap of 45, 46,000. Just because if you look at the player field, like any one of these guys can win this, right? The guys down at the bottom, Keegan, Gary Woodland, Bubba, Noren, Stenson, I don't love, but you have some really cheap options above that. Woodland's going to be pretty chalky. So my thought process is this. If our goal is to win the $25,000, which it is, okay, we are not playing this to min cash 150 lineups. We are playing to win the 25,000 or lose all $750. Okay, that's the way that I play GPPs in general, and that is the way we are going to approach this. Having non-duplicated lineups is going to be very important. But also we're going to be a little bit at the luck of the results here, right? So if chalk hits, I assume the winning lineup is going to be duplicated quite a bit. It might be a 100-way tie for first if like Gary Woodland wins this thing. But if we have some, we're going to take on a lot of less duplicated lineups, or assume they are less duplicated. And if one of those lineups wins, we are more likely to win, first by ourselves, for example. So how are we going to do this? I've kind of been messing around with a few optimizers, and I've settled on for this week is to go with Daily Roto. So again, if you know me, I don't work for these guys. I have nothing. I don't know any of them. I don't like lineup optimizers in general. I just don't like the way they build lineups. What I do like is I like the guys here from everything I hear about Drew and Mike. They're really good guys when I hear them on podcasts and whatnot. So kind of just willing to patronize them a little bit. I've used their tool in the last probably 2 weeks just to do showdown NFL contests. Seems to be a pretty in-depth tool. Their PGA tool, not nearly as in-depth, but for this week and for our purposes, it's going to be fine. So what you're looking at here, if you're watching on the video, is really, it's every player in the field. You can put weights on long-term form, recent form, course history. Looks like you can kind of change the expected scoring average, which I don't know how that would affect ownerships here. Or where they're pulling this from, because if it's strokes gain data, we don't have strokes gain data for course history, I assume. And this has only been played here, I think, this will be like the 4th year. So I'm not weighing course history a lot. So what I'm going to do, and it looks like they have this equaling out to be 10. So right now, I guess the default is long-term is 7.1, recent form is 2.5, and course history is 0.4. I will just bring down long-term form a little bit, and I'll raise recent form. Again, we don't really know how these guys have been playing over the course of the last couple weeks, especially because a lot of them have not played. So we'll just kind of do that. We'll just kind of level it out a little bit. I'd like to weigh more on recent guys. You can see how that changes the values pretty significantly, right? I mean, Tiger takes a hit. Finau jumps up. Hideki jumps up. Gary Woodland, Keegan, and Alex Noren jump up as well. So I don't really know. This is going to kind of be like a stream of conscious because I haven't used this before. Or we're just going to kind of go through this together. So lineups to return. This will be we'll do 100 here, and then we'll do 50 in another set. And what I'm going to do, and what I really want to do is, if you're ever using an optimizer and you're not using your own projections, in which this case I'm not, I wanted to tweak these projections, just even the weights, right? Because I don't want to run the same projections that everyone else is. So that's one way to differentiate myself. Even if you're changing this a little bit, you're going to have different exposures, right? If everyone comes in and says, I just want to use the stock projections and I want 50 lineups, like everyone's going to get the same 50 lineups. So we're just going to change a few of the settings here. Like we'll change the expected scoring per round to 2 under, just see if that changes the weights a little bit. We've already changed the weights of long-term and recent form. And then we're going to change the risk preference, which, trying to see what this does here. We're going to make it a little more risky. I don't know how that factors into these projections, quite honestly. We'll say max exposure 100, which we'll see we'll see what comes out first. We might not go all in on a player. We might lower this to like 80%. What I don't want, so I want exposure to everyone, even if it's like 5 lineups, like 5%, which would be like 8 lineups. I don't want to be drawing dead at any point, right? Even if the guy that I have 5% of is going to win this thing, at least I've got those bullets. Like I don't want to be really drawing dead. So I don't want to be 100% in on anybody. I'm willing to be like 80 or 90%. And I probably want at least 5% of everyone. So I'm just going to run it with 100 and see what comes out here. Projected ownership ceiling. I'm not going to mess with that yet. I want to see the baseline projections and see what happens here. So let's run this. I've never done this before. All right. So here's our expected lineups. And all right, real quick. There's only like 1, 2, 3, 4. There's probably like 10 lineups that are 50,000. I wonder if that's the only 10 lineups you can make for 50,000. And then it doesn't go below 47.7. So like that's what I'm talking about is if you spend $46,000 in this tournament, you're probably not leaving that many points on the table and you will have a unique lineup. I bet you 47.7 is pretty unique as well. As far as expected points go, yeah, they're all basically, I mean, these are pretty, I mean, standard projections, right? Where salary and projected points correlate. That's fine. All right. And view exposures. So if we look at this, based on the first run at this, okay, this actually isn't entirely, this isn't that bad. I don't know if you can see this on my screen here, but what we've got is, sorry, maybe if I go this way, is it responsive? All right, let's do this. Matsuyama is the guy who's projected, or who's in the most of my lineups, 84%, then Finau at 82, then it goes down to 67%. I'm okay with that, right? Like we don't have like 4 or 5 guys at 80%. We've got exposure to DJ. They have, this is kind of cool. So they have the expected projections in here. So it expects, for example, Finau to be in 47% of lineups. I have him in 82% at the moment, which would be 34% leverage. Okay. Does it have anybody in 0% of lineups? No. It has almost. It has Patrick Reed, Henrik Stenson, Bryson DeChambeau, and Tiger Woods in 2 or 3% of lineups. How do I feel about this? I don't love fading Bryson in this moment. I don't love fading Patrick Reed, who just won on the Euro Tour a couple weeks ago. I'm okay with fading Woods and Stenson, to be quite honest with you. Then the next couple fades would be probably Xander and Jason Day. We'd have less than the field on, assuming these projections are correct. Fowler, we'd have a little bit less on, which I don't love. Woodland, we'd be, just 5% less on 40. So this actually isn't bad. We'd be heavily overweight on Matsuyama, Finau, Rose, JT, DJ, Rahm, and Cantlay, who are all pretty strong plays, right? Like that's a hell of a group of guys to be overweight on. So I'm okay with this. I'm going to download these just so that I have them. I'm not sure these are what I roll out in just kind of like the first iteration here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to see if I can just kind of tweak this a little bit. So what I'd love to get is probably a little bit more exposure to maybe Bryson. So I wonder if I give him just a little manual bump here of like 5%. We'll see how this adjusts. And we will give, who was the other guy I didn't love fading down there? Oh man, my brain. Who was it? It was Bryson, Stenson, Tiger, and who was our last guy? Oh, Reed. And I'll give like a little 2 bump to Reed. And we'll just see what these come out to be. All right, let's try this. I don't know what happens here. If I run 100 more, is this now my new 100? Okay. I guess it is. I really don't know. All right, here we go. So now these are going to be kind of similar, maybe. Yeah. Okay. Way underweight on Tiger and Stenson. We have a few more lineups of Reed. We're now up to 9% on Reed instead of 2%. And DeChambeau gets into 38% of the lineups. So with that, we lose more leverage on DJ. We're now less overweight on DJ. We are more underweight on Woodland. We are Still leading the way with Matsuyama and Finau and Rose and JT and Rom and Cantlay. Okay. And Fowler, we now have, 40% of Fowler. That's fine. Overweight on DJ, closer on. Okay. This isn't bad. So really, what we would be doing here is this is essentially a clean fade of Tiger, which is a little bit scary, but that's what it is, right? It's an absolute clean fade of Tiger. If there's any player that I'd be okay clean fade, like Tiger is always more owned than he should be. And that does not mean he's ever a bad play, right? Like Tiger could be the best play on the slate and he's going to be 10% more owned than he should be. So with that built-in bump, I'm almost always willing to fade him because he gets more ownership than he should no matter what. Now, this is a pretty drastic fade of him. If he goes out and wins this thing, we're pretty screwed. Stenson, that's fine. I mean, you're going to have to take some stands at some places. Stenson, fine. We have 3 times as much read as we used to have, which is not much, but we still have some. Noren's there. Schauffele's there. Keegan, a little underweight. So really, we don't want Tiger winning this thing. We don't want Henrik Stenson or Patrick Reed winning this thing. We'd probably survive if someone, even like Ricky Fowler won, because we'd have him in 40% of lineups, even though we'd be underweight on the field. We'd still have him in 40% of our lineups. If Woodland wins, he'd be super chalky. We'd still have him in a third, right? So hopefully this bump of Bryson pays off. Okay, so I'm going to download these as well, and this is probably what we're going to go with here. What I also want to do is I want to run these again, but I want to say my max team salary is let's call it 47,600. So why I'm doing that is I know that my highest salary lineup in this set of 100 is 47,700. So basically what I'm saying is I don't want any of the same teams you've just given me, and I want to go 47,600. And let's see what types of teams these create, and we'll do 50 of these, and we'll see what happens. All right. So here we go. So here are 50 teams. Now, this is pretty crazy. All right. So this is how I think you win one of these. I think you win one of these by forgetting about the salary caps, and getting unique lineups. Here's a lineup. Matsuyama, Tony Finau, Patrick Cantlay, Keegan Bradley, Justin Thomas, Justin Rose. This is an 18-man tournament. Are you telling me that that's not a good lineup? Like, could that lineup be the winning lineup? Absolutely. You would not be surprised at that at all. And at 47,600, it might be the only one of its kind in this freaking tournament, right? Like, that's the point. Here's another one, right? This is even better. Matsuyama, Finau, Woodland, Rahm, Day, Rose. Dope. Like, I'd love to enter that for 47,600. So I assume that unless you are max entering, and I will try to pull these lineups later. I assume unless you're max entering or playing like 50 or more lineups, you are probably not entering any lineups that are this cheap, right? They're all between 47.6 and 46.4. And even the 46.4 one, Matsuyama, Finau, Woodland, Cantlay, Thomas, Fowler. That could absolutely win this thing. Absolutely win it. So what I'm saying is if you're hand making one lineup, 5 lineups, 10 lineups, you're probably staying as close to $50,000 as possible. So that's going to eat up the large percentage of the field. So let's see what the exposures are, but I'm already resigned to loving these lineups, right? So all right. Matsuyama and Finau are like 96 and 98% because of how cheap they are. So just before we even get into this, with how much exposure I have to these guys, if they lay an egg, we're going to be in big trouble. But if they play well, we're going to be in great shape. We'd be overweight on JT. We'd be a little overweight on Woodland. We'd be big overweight on Finau. Again, these 50 lineups do not even have Tiger in them. 2 have Stenson. It's kind of the same composition. It's a little bit different. I shouldn't say that because you're a little more overweight on Keegan. You're pretty neutral on Noren. You're getting a different lineup composition. So I don't want to say it's very similar, but it's close. But yeah, we are very much in the business of Hideki and Finau, which could absolutely kill us. And we're fading Woods, Stenson, Reed, and who was the last guy? I keep forgetting the last guy. Woods, Stenson, Reed. Oh, we bumped up DeChambeau. So we'll see. This is what I'll go with. I'll download these two, and we're going to put those 150 lineups in. I don't really know what to expect here, right? I expect it to be a good sweat. What I'm hoping to avoid is anyone just withdrawing or finishing dead last, right? So especially Finau and Matsuyama, I don't need them to win. If they win, that's great. What I would like, if you let me sign up for Matsuyama and Finau to finish like 5th and 6th right now, I'd probably take it, just because I knew I have that locked into so many lineups. And then the other guys around them, just try to find the right combination. So there you go. Let me know how terribly wrong I am in this approach. It's 150 lineups. I'll try to tweet some stuff out and update it as the tournament goes on. I'll try to do a quick review maybe after each round just to see where we're at. I don't know. But this is going to be fun. Looking forward to it. Tweet me. It's at DFS On Demand. Leave a comment below. Later.